Hi, welcome, everybody. On behalf of the Independent Living Movement of Ireland, we are a cross impairment disabled people's organisation, a GPO, and to make the event more inclusive, we have the Irish Sign Language interpreter Ella here, and we also have live speech to text captions available via Zoom. This event is also being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel next week, and that's ILMI.ie. This is the third webinar called Everything You Want to Know About Disability but were afraid to ask. So this is part 3, and this webinar is subtitled Let's Talk About Social Models. I will be the MC for the next hour, and I guarantee you I'll do my best to keep it within the hour. I'll be the MC for a panel discussion. So on that panel, I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues, Fiona Weldon, Paula, and Dr. James Casey. The social model of disability has done much of the successes of the global disability rights movement, especially since the late 70s and really taken off in the 90s onwards. So it's the great thing is that it's been developed by disabled people, by disabled activists, informed and in my own experience working at the UN in the North on the UNCRPD, it doesn't it's a backbone of the UNCRPD. It does actually mentioned in the actual document itself. It is actually the backbone. But today is about how 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 much do we actually do does the actual person on the streets or in the day centre or in the community centre actually know about what the social model actually means? And also I add to that, do they actually know the medical model as well? Because you need to know both. Because there are paradigms, there are models, and the whole idea is that you know both models and you can compare and contrast your lived experience by referring to there's a medical model, there's a social model. So and how today is looking at the importance to disabled people and activists and DPOs and looking at the looking with my colleagues Fiona, James and Paula, looking at the practical implications for policy development and investment in effective inclusion of disabled people. So firstly, you're going to ask each panel member to introduce themselves. So firstly, Fiona, can you tell us a little about your background and how that informed today's discussion?
So my name is Fiona Weldon, and I've been working in the disability sector for a long time, Peter. So I'm not going to say how long. And I've done an awful lot of activism work and supporting disabled people to understand the social model of disability and to kind of get the services that they need to live a good life. I also have done an awful lot of training and development work in the area of progressing independent living and inclusive living.
And Dr. James, do you want to give us a bit of background, PSR, and in terms of context for today?
Yeah, cheers, Peter. So my name is James. I'm from Mayo. It's like the Rose of Tralee for disabled people. This, and my background is, I was in academia, and I suppose I still am to a little bit. And I did my research for a long time is in critical disability studies, not disability studies, critical disability studies, which is it's a more modern, updated version of disability studies, looking at disability studies from a quality perspective and a social model perspective. But I've been working with ILMI for the last 3 years, and I really enjoy it, and I really love doing the work. So that's my little bit of background.
And Paula, last but not least, up there in Studies Dundalk, do you want to give a bit of your background and how that informs today's discussion on the social model?
Absolutely, thank you, Peter. My name is Paula Soraghan. I am a proud, confident, disabled woman. I have been involved with ILMI since 2019 when I went to the AGM. And that was my first introduction to the disability community and also to the social model. And that was a really big turning point for me, because up until then, I didn't really understand what disability was. I always thought it was a personal issue or something that was wrong with me because of my impairment label, cerebral palsy. And I always wanted to find community. So when I got the opportunity to get involved with ILMI and go to the AGM, I took it. And that was a really big turning point for me personally. And I've gotten involved with ILMI as a member in lots of different spaces throughout the COVID-19 lockdowns. And then I got the opportunity to interview for a role, and I'm now working for ILMI full time as the Voice Community Development Worker for Penny, Carlow, Waterford and Wexford. And I'm also studying disability equality studies in St. Angela's, which is now the Atlantis University. So I've taken a break at the moment, but I'm going to be going back in January.
Thanks, Paula. I'm delighted you're here. So the other two are out for now, and so it's great to have a young one here who had that experience of the social model. So I know it was Fiona and James didn't jump in and try to kill me on that one. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask.
Are you calling us old, Peter?
And actually today I was looking at how the social model will work with all of the disabled people in looking at human rights and possible observatory. And that's the kind of work that ILMI does, is try to refine the platforms where the social model can actually come to life with state structures and state platforms. So Fiona and James and me, we'd be okay because we're outputs and everyone. So we can still do the social model until we kick the bucket. so I'm going to ask it. You're going to ask everybody just the same three questions, sorry. And again, I promise we're going to be finished with 0. So I hope Paula and Fiona and James don't mind if the odd time I jump in to just speed you up. And other be feel free to stop me if I double two actions and CP. You have a clue what I'm saying. You jump in, right? So first question, right? We have great attendance today at today's webinar. I think we'll talk to 300 people here. For someone who this come to this webinar wanting to know what the social model is, and maybe never heard the social model of disability before. So the question is, how would you describe the social model, right? So Fiona, can I go to you first?
You can, Peter. Say you can. So I suppose, like, I'm XX years of age, and I'm living proof of the power of the social model and disability and social model thinking. And the social model of disability is a very easy concept to understand. It basically separates impairment or your condition from disability. It means that I no longer have to buy into the belief that I am the problem. We are disabled by the world that we live in. I am a disabled woman, and I'm very proud to be a disabled woman. And the social model of disability has become is part of who I am. It's part of my being. It's part of my soul. It's part of my value system. And you said at the beginning that the social model of disability was created by disabled people, but for disabled people, and that's really important. And it was done as a reaction against how society has created exclusionary practices to keep disabled people believing that we need specialized services that deliberately separate us from the rest of society. And unfortunately, these practices are very alive and kicking today, and has kept non-disabled professionals in charge of our lives. It's my lived experience that the model has tremendous power, individually, as I said, and collectively, but also as a tool to inform policy, practice, and mainstream society. So the social model basically says that we are people with impairments or conditions, and these clearly have an impact on how we live and our lives. But our impairments are not the things that disable us or hold us back. It is the inaccessible environments, the structures, the systems that get in the way, and they are the things that disable us.
And just to pick up on Fiona, did you go to special school?
No.
I did. So I just want what Fiona said, that really, that was a really fantastic introduction. Just in quickly in terms of social model, I had the label of cerebral palsy back in the 60s. It was spastic. So because I had that label, my working class parents had to send me to a special school. Nowadays, children with label as CP obviously don't go to special schools to go to normal schools. And with CP or spastic hasn't changed. So the social model is very much about, as Fiona said, looking at what actually disables us, and the label itself, the impairment label, can also disable us too. So James, do you want to follow on then in terms of introducing social model to somebody that has only come across it now?
Yeah, sure. Like you, just pop that in. I'm a young sprightly fella. I'm only messing. I think it's part of people's value systems, but I think too it's a very elegant little way of thinking, and that's what the social model is essentially. It's a way of thinking, and it's an ideology that you live by. And when we think of the word model, what does the word model mean? The model is an example. You can see it in practice. One of our younger colleagues, Claire, she said, if you can see it, you can be it. And I think that's the thing with the social model, is that you see it and how it works in practice. And it is about equality, and it is about fairness, and it is about rights. But it's a way of being and a way of living, and it's a way of independence. I think critical independence, and kind of going, I don't have to put up with this nonsense. It's a way of going, no, pushing back a little bit against that. And people are all at different paces with the social model, but essentially you get it or you don't get it. And at this point, I think it's really, we can put a definition in it, and we can say this is what it is, and this is the language we use and stuff like that. But I think essentially it really is about fairness. It's about it's that gray area between the last big, massive chunk of equality that this country hasn't engaged with. And we haven't engaged with the social model in Ireland. I mean, other countries have engaged with it. A lot of Northern European countries now engage with it. They don't call it the social model because they have a different translation for it and different name for it. But as I said, it's a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking about disability in terms of fairness, in terms of equality, in terms of rights, in terms of what's my place in society? What's my reaction towards these barriers and challenges that I meet, and where are those barriers and challenges coming from? Majority of the time, they're not by our impairments, which is, whatever is wrong, whatever biological difference or functional difference you have, but rather it's your interaction, your impairment interaction with an unwielding society. Very blunt example, you know, you put a ladder where there could be a ramp. Who does that? I don't know. But it's Ireland, so wheelchair toilets, they probably have a ladder going up to them. That's Ireland. You put in a ramp, you're not disabled anymore. So your impairment is meeting an accessible society. That's very blunt and it's a very rough example. But a lot of the time too, there seems to be a reluctance to engage with the social model. And again, I think when we think about the social model and work through it, thinking through it, we see how powerful it can be. And as Fiona said, and Peter and Paul, you get there, it's part of your makeup, it's part of your value system. It's something that you kind of go, no, fuck that, no, don't, you know, you kind of really push back against it, and you know when we're going to meet, and sometimes you can be labeled as awkward, but you know that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And Paul, yourself, being the youngest, probably the youngest among us. It's interesting. I'm working with some younger disabled people the last few weeks who came to mainstream school with the only disabled person in their class, and it's only now they're encountering disabled people, and they themselves might have thought themselves as a bit of an activist, but over the last few weeks of training with me, they realised that they had never heard of the social model or medical model. So Paula, for you, how would you explain the social model to somebody new?
So the way I would explain it is, Peter, is that to echo what Fiona and James said, it's a way of life, it's a value system for so many people. It's a source of pride, it's an identity, certainly in my personal experience. And, you know, the social model for me, just to say it out, it saved my life. Before the social model, I was just kind of trudging along, and you know, I had my full-time job, and you know, that was great. But I mean, I didn't really know where I was going or what I was doing. Just kind of thought that was kind of it, really. And when the opportunity came to get involved with ILMI, I'm so glad that I went. And I was very lucky because 6 months after I got involved with ILMI, after I went to the AGM, we were in lockdown. So I was so lucky that I had ILMI when I needed it, and the social model when I needed it, because up until I got involved, excuse me, or found out what the social model was, I always thought that I was the problem, that there was something missing, there wasn't something quite right. And I was looked down, always kind of looked down on in society as kind of less than, or kind of made feel less than. Not even by certain people, but just kind of this feeling that you have before you come across the social model. I certainly did feel that I wasn't really good enough, you know, and oh well, this is it, kind of just make do with what you have and be thankful and grateful. And that's the danger with not kind of coming across the social model or not engaging with the social model for a lot of disabled people, is they risk not reaching their full potential because of it. And that's why for me, I'm so glad that I do know what the social model is, and I live, breathe and sleep the social model now. It's made such an amazing impact on my life. The Paula Soraghan 2019, 3 years ago, is not the Paula Soraghan that's sitting in front of you here today. And that's because of the social model. And that is the truth. And just to echo what James said, it's something as simple as, you know, not having a ramp for a wheelchair user to get into a restaurant, for example. You know, it honestly does rob, without engaging with the social model, disabled people are robbed of so much joy, they're robbed of so much empowerment. The social model is empowerment, because you realise, okay, I'm not the problem. And it's, for me, it was such a relief. And I was so empowered to get involved and to make my mark, to be a part of social change. And as James and Fiona said earlier, to stand up and say, enough is enough. I'm not putting up with this. Things need to change. They can't stay the same. I want choice in my life. I want independence in my life. And for me, that was a big thing too about the social model, is that you understand what independence actually means. That a lot of people think, myself included before the social model, that being independent means having to do everything for yourself, or the more you can do for yourself, the better. But the social model says no, that's not the case. Independence is about you calling the shots in your day-to-day life, that you make the decisions, that you are in control, and that you make the choices, that you don't have somebody saying to you, this is what you're going to have for dinner, this is what you're going to wear today, and this is when you can have a shower, or when we're going to go out and do the shopping, or whatever it is. That you have it in you, and you have the power to make those decisions yourself, that you are good enough and you do have so much to offer. And that's why I want more disabled people to get involved, particularly young disabled people as well. As what Fiona said, that, and it was my experience, I went to mainstream education, and that was very lonely for me at times. I mean, I had my friends, don't get me wrong, and they were great, but it is lonely being the only physically disabled person in your class, because you do feel like a bit of a black sheep. But I'll just leave it for there.
Yeah, it's okay, Paula. Good. I want you to keep thinking about that, right? Because the second question is related to what you're saying. So I'm actually going to come back to you at the end of the second question, right? And just to tell people, and it's fantastic to work with Paula. One of the young actors, disabled actors I'm working with, who was very much challenged by my workshop on the medical and social model 4 weeks ago. She came back to me yesterday, sat down beside me, and she said, I got him because she spent a few hours talking to Paula, and Paula was able to communicate that in her own experience, her own journey to actually seeing the social model as become the essence of how you approach life as well. But we should also don't forget, you need to know the medical model as well. So like the medical model is me in terms of Peter Kearns. I'm not Peter Kearns in the medical model. I'm Peter with cerebral palsy. So I'm actually cerebral palsy label, and that takes over everything. So it doesn't matter that I'm a bit of a scumbag from Killock in Dublin. It doesn't matter whether I'm white, slightly mid to late 50s, heterosexual marriage and all that. That doesn't matter, because in the medical model, being permanently labeled cancels their everything. So it's interesting to work with disabled actors trying to portray disabled characters, and unlike non-disabled actors who focus on representing the impairment, the disabled actors who've gone through disability quality training, and again also with the support of Paula, is that they can now realise that there's a character under a fantastic character underneath that impairment label. So I just jump to question 2, and James, I might start with you and leave Paul at the end, right? So now that we have an idea what the social model is, we have an idea what the medical model is. What impact did learning about the social model have on you as a disabled person, and then as a disabled activist?
Not much. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I mean, there was no road to Damascus moment with me. I mean, I suppose there's incidents in my life. I don't really talk. I'm hesitant to kind of talk about, this is just me being an oddball, but I don't like kind of talking about my personal life, because I feel that sometimes there's this idea that our lives are public, and I'm not really I'm not really good with that. I'm awkward and odd, but I think there was a point where you meet all these barriers, and you meet all these, dams, and you're like the little Dutch boy kind of putting your finger in it to keep the water coming out, Peter, and you're constantly trying to keep the dike from exploding and coming over on top of you, but you kind of go, where are these coming from? And then you find out what it is, and you find out that I'll tell you one great moment amongst many. But I was doing my master's degree, and I was doing the little dissertation. And I remember I was writing about disability in film, disability adaptation in film. I didn't want to. I originally wanted to do it about Clint Eastwood, but I said I'll do this instead. And I remember one of the advisors I had on it at the time said to me, and they were a young academic, but they were, they were pushing it out there. They were involved in women's studies and things. And they go to me that, they go, well, we're a little bit worried that you're too close to the subject here. And I'm like, what? And instantly there's this hesitation sometimes when you're a student and even academic telling you, established academic telling you that, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, no, hold on now, fuck this. I said to them, well, that's like saying to a woman that they can't study gender in film, or a person of color that they can't study like the film of Jordan Peele, who didn't exist at the time, but you know what I'm talking about. And they go, no, it's not the same thing. And I was like, no, it is. It's the same thing. It's like you're assuming that I can't be objective because I'm going to be too involved and too emotionally connected to my impairment. That's your assumption. Anyway, I know I done my usual thing and just ignored them and did what I was going to do anyway. And I think that's one of those moments where you kind of realize what the social model is. I read about it when I was doing that, and I met you, Peter, years ago. We did the workshops and all that, and you kind of see that kind of way. I think how much my influence as an activist. I think all activism essentially, when you're doing it for, and I hate to use that term, the greater good, because I'm not a good Samaritan. I'm flawed human like anyone else, but you do kind of want to make things better. You do have to advocate for yourself. And then when you realize that you're advocating for yourself, because everything's a challenge when you're disabled, a lot of the time, as a disabled person, especially growing up in Ireland in the 80s or 90s, you realize that what you're doing is just you're expressing your rights, and that you're taking the emphasis off me as a person with an impairment kind of nonsense to a disabled person. So my disability is created by these challenges I'm meeting from these structures. And when you push back against that, you start to become the reluctant activist. And I was a reluctant activist. But then you kind of go, well, if I didn't do it, nobody's going to do it. And we have to do it together. And I think you see the real power for me, the real transformation power of the social model is genuinely in the last few years. The work that we did on the project on the border counties, the ONSIDE project, that to me was something else. I mean, we connected what, Peter, 1,500 disabled people, 2,000 disabled people, and we done disability equality workshops. We had them worked out, and we done them online with them, and to see they're changing, and you see that power coming up from the bottom with very little resources, and just creativity, doing it for ourselves. I think that was really it. When I say doing it for ourselves, I mean coming together as a political and cultural collective. I don't mean like climbing stairs or cooking the dinner or something, or bringing up the bins. That's someone else's job. So I think that for me really has illustrated how much power we can do. And and during COVID-19, the lockdown, I think this is important to mention this, that we did a values thing last night. I said, we were asked what happened with IMI, why did it explode? And I said COVID. I didn't mean that, because, and we'll come to this, the last question, everyone else skedaddled during COVID. Service providers, charities, everyone skedaddled. We didn't skedaddle. We stuck by, and we kind of said, right, hold on here a second. What are these challenges? We're used to meeting them. So let's see. Society's closing down. Hey, society's always closing down for us. So how do we meet them? So we adapted, and we met these challenges, and we came out stronger, and we're continuing stronger because of the creativity we have. So I think that for me is a social model in action. And as I said, there was no real Damascus moment. I understood it, but I didn't know what it was. It's like that banana picture that Nina has up, the fruit bowl. And it's like that. You can describe it, you can eat it, but you know what it is, you smell it, you can touch it. This is getting very bad. But it's a banana. And it's hard, difficult to describe until you actually experience it. So I think that's for me, is that I suppose in the last 10 years and 15 years, I've really named it as the social model. But before that, I kind of got it. I think I was very young, because I was kind of not very happy with things that were going. But instead of kind of going, well, what can I do about it? I kind of went, well, I'm going to have to push against it,
Yeah, I agree. And I think you just to say what Jane during COVID, in terms of social, even something like Jane tells the bi-weekly film club on Zoom, which was so successful. Got people through that first COVID winter. great fun. And it's just applying the social model to films where you had disabled stories and disabled characters. And it was great fun. So the social model is actually can be great fun as well. And I'll ask Reverend App, anything you want to know about disability and sex. Should anybody who hasn't seen that, go and check that out. That again, that's applying the social model to relationships with sexuality. So Fiona, on that point, what do you feel about the learning impact of the social model on you as a disabled person?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit like James in that, like, it wasn't, so I went to mainstream primary and secondary school, and I loved secondary school with great crack, good friends, disco, anyway, men and boys and all that sort of thing. But like when I done my leaving cert, and it was, where do I go now? So all my friends, so I had 3 or 4 really good friends, and they all went to college, so they all left. They were sitting in our bedroom thinking out what the heck was going to happen to me. And I was saying, this can't be right, so I sort of like, I was put into a special center, Peter, and I lasted a year because I got in so much trouble. Anyway, and
were you stabilized?
Not entirely, but I was very troublesome. So I would have the label of having a challenging behavior.
And what kind of troublesome things did you do?
Well, like for fuck's sake, why did I have to do what I'm told when I have to do it? And why do I have to learn something I know already? Or why do I have to listen to non-disabled professionals tell me?
And was that kind of, would you consider that a medical model?
Oh, it was purely medical model. It was like, Fiona, you don't know nothing, and you need to listen to us, and we'll tell you what to do, and you'll live the best life that you can have. So I had no expectations.
And so how intense a social model did you drag us out of that situation? Because the state and the system had sent you there.
Peter, I got pregnant.
Good for you.
Yeah, so I got 22, and I had Aaron, my first child, and I have to say that was a Damascus moment, because then I was just a woman, and disability for me didn't come into it, and I no longer felt I needed to listen to anybody except myself. And so I started saying, thanks very much, thanks for your advice. But you need to start listening to what I need to say and what and stop wasting money on ridiculous services and stop destroying people's lives by housing them in is the word where, like, I don't know what else to call them. And like I remember, well, a few years ago, I worked with people with intellectual impairments, and they really taught me so much, about life and their experiences. And one person said to me, and her name is Marie Wolf, and she won't mind me, saying who she is. But she told me that, why are we treated as prisoners when we haven't committed a crime? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a Damascus moment as well, in that I needed to, because I discovered the social model as James did. So I knew it before I knew what it was. And I said, I fucking sorry. Fucking,
Yeah, great. Yeah.
I
And
need to do something.
I'm just thinking that famous sculpture on Trafalgar Square in the north is Alison Laughlin, the
Yeah.
disabled artist who was 8 months pregnant.
Yeah, she was.
Big, huge marble, Irish, first generation Irish sculptor, Mark Quinn, this
Mhm.
huge marble sculpture of Alison, 8 months pregnant, short arms, short legs, and the uproar that caused
I know,
at the time.
and she was a fabulous person.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
was an amazing
yeah.
person.
So now we have the image of you pregnant, falling off a horse on the road to the
God,
marathon,
yeah.
jumping up and free.
Oh
Paula,
my God.
Paula, back to you. Any thought in terms of the social model? You told us a lot, but anything else you want to add in terms of the personal impact of the social model on you?
This really opened up my world, Peter, just to continue on from what I said earlier, that, you know, I always wanted to study disability and learn more about disability, but I never had the opportunity, or really looking back now, it's a blessing I didn't up until when I eventually did, because I was very much entrenched in the medical model, and I was very much, you know, treated differently in school, and you know, it was all insurance reasons this, insurance reasons that. So I was always kind of deprived, really, of many, many things. My parents are absolutely fantastic and so supportive, but I mean, there's only so much that they can do when it's not a personal issue, disability, it's a systemic issue. So no matter how hard your parents try, they're not going to fix the systems overnight, you know, and it's not up to them either.
And we are we're currently up against again parents who are trying to impose the special school system on young disabled people again, and this always happens every 10 years because they don't have the lived experience that we have. So so again, my as DPO, we have to step up and educate those parents in the social model.
Yeah, and that's because as well, Peter, to add on, that it's because the social model, as you said, isn't widely known. You know, there's not enough disabled people in positions of power, especially from a social model point of view, that are letting these parents know that special schools and it's segregation, and it's not okay. And how is this going to impact your child when they're an adult? You know, like, it's one thing when they're a child. You know, they're very focused on, okay, let's deal with this now. This is the best solution. But it's not the best solution. Of course, it's going to seem like the best solution within the medical model, but people don't know what they don't know. And that's what the danger is as well. And, you know, it's awful that so many children with particular impairment labels, like autism or intellectual impairments, that they're automatically shoved into this special school system and they're never given a chance. And they're deemed, you know, difficult, or, you know, they have to have this special help and they need all this extra support or special needs. And it's just so devastating. And it honestly has such huge effects. And I would know that from engaging with the autistic community on Twitter, you know, how devastating it is that, you know, children aren't children forever. They grow, we all grow up to be adults, you know, and in Ireland, you're forgotten about when you turn 18. Any supports you get, they're chucked out the window. But it's like, well, what about when I'm not 18? You know, I'm older than 18. So what about now?
So by the time you're 18 and parents who look for medical model rights, by the time the young person's 18, they are stuck with the impairment label and no support from the state. So I'm going to just jump ahead. I promise everybody we'll be finished within the hour, and we have about 20 minutes left. The final question is a bit interesting, but also a bit challenging as well for us. And I'm going to go start off with James. I'll start off here as well, yeah, right? So we all know here, and I say quite a few audience know that the social model really very much empowers disabled people to their core. It gives a framework for transformation and change. It does change society. So we know I had to go to a special school. A great thing about Fiona, who's slightly younger than me, went to normal school. Things do change. The impairments don't, but they might get worse. But the system can be changed. You think of buses, you think of pathway, I think even now media representation is changing with disabled actors playing disabled characters, So things, but the problem is that it's social model, it's not new. It's been around really since the 80s and developed a lot in the 90s. But why do you think, and I know from my own experience, definitely, why do you think, James, there's so much resistance to the social model thinking, and especially here in the Republic, and myself, having so many backgrounds, where we actually have to interrupt and correct people who are in positions of power, and even academia, both academics, and we had to correct the colleagues who for years have been using the disability title to get a lot of funding. I mean, now social model academics and activists, we do have to continuously have to correct them. Why do you think that resistance is, James?
You mentioned there about Peter, and it's been around since even before the 70s, but starting the social model, money and power. And I'm not bringing my own politics into it, but it's money and power. Ireland, what happened with the usual craze with this country is that the government at whatever time listens to the Catholic Church took on the services. A lot of large service providers and charities in this country are hugely financed, not the smaller ones, but the big ones. And there's a lot of money involved. There's an awful lot of money involved. And it may not be profits, but it's somewhere else. And that's what it's about. It's about power, and it's about money, and it's about services, more services, more services. And it's about the real big story we have. And it is a beautiful, fantastic, interesting story. This fight that we have, this challenge that we have. I won't say crusade, but or anything like that. But you have fake news, you have real news, and there's a lot of that when it comes to disability. The fake news, the real news. You'll see RT pop up with a news story that disabled people are lying in a ditch looking up, right face down, because they don't have another 17 million for services, and they need 17 million for services. Where is that? So a lot of the time there's this idea in the head that if we put more money into services and charities, it equals more equality and rights. It doesn't. It means there's more services, and they do a great job, and they're doing their thing. But what it comes down to is that the reluctance is because when there's a vested interest, and a large vested interest, and this is not conspiracy, everything's out there, then that's where issues happen. And we only have to look at other countries. I mean, if you look at some of the smaller countries, I use a very blunt example. The personal assistance service is a right in many countries, and it's coordinated by a local authority or local council. Here it's not. Most services are publicly run in other countries in the European Union. And I'm going to say the European Union because I think it's unhelpful when we compare Ireland to other Anglophone countries, although we have something culturally in common with them. And historically, I think socially, we really don't anymore, and that's okay, and especially where we are with the social model thinking. I think we've got much more in common with the Northern European countries, not culturally, but certainly socially, and especially when it comes to disability and impairment. And the unique case with Ireland, and it is unique, is the powers of service providers and charities when it comes to representing disabled people, or or saying they represent disabled people, or not been very honest about representing disabled people, or not been have a true reflection. So it'll say something like, we represent service providers who are our clients who are disabled, or people with disabilities is the word they use a lot of the time, but they'll never come out and say that. Or they're umbrella groups as well. So when we think of it, a lot of the time too, the resistance is because we're not being heard to represent ourselves, and there's a lot of money and finance involved in that. So we'll have organizations come out and say, a lot of them will say, we need disabled people, need this, that, and the other. How do you know? You don't know disabled people. You don't represent disabled people. It's like going to Men's Shed and saying, what do you think women need? Or going to our American saying, what do you think people in direct provision need? They don't know.
Yeah.
They're always going to say we need more direct provision.
Yeah.
So I think that's the point. And the point is too, is like, it's like actually going to IBEC, who is the Irish Business Group, and saying, hey, come here, how do you think we can deal with the cost of living for consumers? They're going to say we need to give businesses more money. That's how we're going to do. So I'm going to be blunt about it and say it's money and power, Peter.
Okay, yeah. That's very clear. So I'm feeling, what do you think is the resistance to the social model?
So to add for James that you said, like, the powers that be will never relinquish their power. Disability services will always want to have the power over the people that they support, even though they're doing a bad job. And we know they're doing a bad job, like they're really good at servicing disabled people. And I'm not saying disability service staff are not good, because I've met really, really good people that work within services. They want the people they use their service to live the best life that they can. But like, the systems will not really show us power and money. Money, like, we don't have an issue with money. The money is there. So it's how it's spent.
Yeah.
And I think people need to wake up, and like, at some point, and the reality is that most people disability will come knocking at their door. Okay, at some point. So it's in everyone's best interest to understand the social model of disability.
Aye. Sorry, jump in there. We're just keeping an eye on the time here. So, and Paula, yourself, what do you think is the resistance to the social model?
Thanks, Peter. Just to echo what James and Fiona said, money, power, and status as well, because it's this outright reluctance of wanting to have another way of thinking. In Irish society in particular, this attitude of, ironically, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Sure, it's grand. The way things are going, sure, it's grand. And well, it's not grand. And people don't realise how entrenched in society, in our Irish society, the medical model is, and how damaging and limiting it is to people's lives. And as Fiona said, problem is not the amount of money. There is more than enough money to go around. But who has the bulk of money and how it's been spent is the issue.
Yeah.
So basically, the way that it's set up is the powers that be. Some people don't realise, the people lower down the ladder, they might not realise that they're contributing to a system of oppression, because, let's be blunt here, that's exactly what's going on, unfortunately. And they're basically the system is stripping disabled people of their rights and grinding down disabled people's confidence. And that's why we, as disabled activists who live through the social model, that's why we do what we do and why we work so hard. And we know from first-hand experience why the social model needs to be out there in society, because it's to benefit everyone.
And Paul, just on the second, just on that point, this is the 18th of October. We're having a Zoom looking at the the disability service sector and applying the social model thinking to that. So I hope everybody keeps an eye out. Am I right? It's the 18th of October. Yeah.
The disability services, Peter,
Yeah,
is it?
yeah, yeah.
The 11th of October, I believe.
Yeah, sorry, 11th of October.
From 11 to 1.
11 to 1. So
Peter, could I just say, you know, for disabled people, you know, out there today listening, you know, I think 100% of them want to live a good life.
Mm-hmm.
They want quality services. But as long as we
and they also want a bit of sex, something like that.
well, yeah, we also want their sex around, sure. Yeah. Anyway,
At the same time.
At the same time, yeah. But like we have to collectively get our act together and collate and with one voice and say, this is not okay. You know, we need to change the traditional system of control and power and use them. Stop wasting our money. Stop wasting our lives.
And Fiona, can I jump in there because you're leading on to the final question there. In terms of the UNCRPD, the UN Convention, which we ratified in 2018, which is really, as I said, it doesn't mention the social model, but it is a social model document for the work on it. We had to take it out for the particular countries at the time, but it's social model. But okay, with that in mind, what would you think is the real effective application of the social model with politicians, policymakers, and the system?
Do you know what, Peter? There's so many documents informing really good practice and empowering people to live good lives. It's written on paper. All people need, all our politicians, all our service providers need to do is fucking read it and understand it and like listen to us. We know what's best and we want to work with whoever. We don't want to work against them, you know, but we want to be partners. We don't want people telling us what to do. We have the UNCRPD. It's a brilliant document. It understands the social model. It tells every government, every state what they need to do to maximize the inclusion, genuine inclusion of disabled people. Fucking use it. Don't leave it on the shelf. I'm just sick of like loads of research done that it's really good, you know, but we need to fucking start using it. So use it. It's there. Like we know what we need to do, you know, but like we need to be telling disability services what we need, what we want. We don't need people telling us what we need or what we want.
And with that in mind, Paula, you work with setting up GPOs with that idea. How can we make the UNCRPD apply more effective to local PPNs and local politicians? So just the role of GPOs that making the UN real.
Absolutely, and just to add on to what Fiona said, absolutely. I mean, like you said, Fiona, we policy documents coming out of our ears in this country. You know, it's in paper, it's great in theory, but I mean, implement it and listen to us and value our lived experience. And you know, DPOs are vital in the actual materializing of the UNCRPD. That we're not just sitting around and talking about it, but to actually put that in practice. Because particularly ILMI is a grassroots DPO. I mean, it's proof that change has happened, and so positive social change is possible, you know, and we need more of it. And that's why we do the work that we do. And it's to empower disabled people as well to get into spaces if they want to get involved. Some disabled people don't want to get involved in activism, and that's okay. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But if you do, and if you do have a taste for activism, get involved in disabled persons organizations and, use your voice and realize that you deserve to not just exist, because that's the problem at the moment, in that there's too many people and too many policy documents that say they're UNCRPD compliant and that say they're social model, and they're not, they're medical model. But in the medical model, disabled people, they just exist. But with the social model and with the real application of the UNCRPD, which is through the work of ILMI, that's what we're doing, disabled people, it means that you live the life of your choosing, and we need more of that.
And it's actually myself and yourself getting to work for the past 2 years, quite intensely setting up something new in the border
Engaging every
countries
minute.
with as you say, over 1,500 disabled adults. What do you think is the effective application of the UNCRPD with policy and systems in the Irish state?
Well, the thing is, they have to do it. It's Ireland's got a seat at the UN Security Council now. We don't want to embarrass themselves when they don't want to rectify a thing. So this is law. They have to. It took them long enough. I mean, they were slow to the party, fucking really slow to the party. So they're here now. So if they want to keep themselves being portrayed as this Ireland of equals, then they need to really take it on board. How do you do that? Well, it's a paradigm shift. You need to think about it. It's going to be civil service departments, everything throughout the country. And a lot of the time too, they're happy to engage us. To be fair, the HSE, everything, they really are open to working with us. And that's what I think is that. And there's good people there. Disability equality workshops. That's how, not disability awareness. Not just getting a token disabled person and saying, we don't go up to a French person in the street and say, here, come here, hey, just give us grinds. We don't do that, So you need to have the skill sets and you need to have the ability to do that. And I think once you get your head around what disability equality is, and not just, impairment specific awareness either, saying, well, this is how you talk to people in wheelchairs or people with one eye or something. You can't do that. That's daftness. And that's not the spirit of the CRPD. And not even the spirit, but that's not the bones of it. So yeah, I think there needs to be a real genuine, and there is a real genuine engagement with authentic DPOs and DPOs that can genuinely communicate what our members and what disabled people want, not put any spin in it that kind of brings a specific kind of outcome. And that's what I think. And I think too is that, and this is very specific, it's probably a technical, less of the advisory boards and more the steering groups, because there's a lot of time where there's a thing, should we get disabled people into being on advisory groups? That's grand. You can take our advice, doesn't mean you can hear our advice, doesn't mean you need to take it. And I think that's one issue too. So yeah, I think we need to have a disability equality forum and talk about it and have a program and bring it throughout the way. There has been in the past with kids and stuff like painting competitions, but what's so yeah, start thinking about equality, disability as an equality issue, first of all. Start having workshops about that, talking about, discussing it, and not being afraid to say, well, we don't know what we're talking about here. So let's ask someone who does, because that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, that's it. So you've got 2 minutes to go, and just in terms of today, we're discussing introduction to the paradigms and models, social models. So I hope the audience are gained a lot from different experts here today. So I'd like to definitely thank Fiona, Paula, and Jane for today, and I'd like to thank other sign language interpreter, Ella, for a fantastic job and understanding my scumbag Tulloch accent. So fair play, Ella. And I'd like to thank in advance my colleague and video guru, John, who's going to edit this down for our webinar and stick up on our website quite soon. So it'd be great if everybody would check out this webinar for today and other webinars on www.ilmi.ie, and you get lots of videos from that as well. And just to say, we are organising a part 4 of everything you want to know about disability but afraid to ask, and later in November. So please sign up to e-bulletin by emailing info@ilmi.ie, and our wonderful Nina we'll send you out emails every 2 weeks and mail shots, and we're also quite active on social media as well. So again, I'd like to thank everybody today, and I hope you got a taste for the social model and an understanding of how the magical model today was us, and we look forward to you coming to the next 18th you want about disability worker class in November. So thanks very much.
Do we do our song now?
You can see your song, but Jamie, make sure you turn it off before we
Oh.
start singing.
Or I'm putting on trousers.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.